if somebody is always a station and they're a maniac, means you can go much, much thinner. But I thought this was an interesting spot because, yes, my hand has improved to a jack, but I'm still losing to 9-10. Now, I beat a hand like king-queen. I lose. King-queen, of course, is like top two. I lose to queen-jack. I lose to king-jack.
Just because I haven't been playing a lot of poker lately doesn't mean I am not still keeping up to date and studying with the Crush Live Poker Podcast and Crush Live Poker video series. That hand you just heard about was Bart Hansen, talking about playing a hand in the Boston area where he would go on to river 3 jacks in what would prove to be a very tricky spot. And I always enjoy hearing how he discusses maneuvering tricky spots just like that one. And if you want to hear that same thought process and learn things to help improve your game, you can always consider subscribing to Crush Live Poker and get 25% off for life. All you got to do is go through the link in the description below. Yes, we are back, and as you can see, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm fucking leaving! Oh, man, finally, moving out of this apartment. Been wanting to do that for several years. Finally got a house that Austin and I are going to live in, and I'm very excited for that. Certainly been doing a ton of work over the past couple of weeks in regards to that. So I haven't had the time to play any poker. So what I want to do for this vlog, and I think it's fitting that it's the last time you're ever going to see me in this setting, and that is I want to take a look at the poker hands I am most proud of in vlog history. And I'm going to guess that I lived in this particular location for all of them because I've lived here way longer than I've lived in any other setting that you've seen on this vlog. Though when I get to the new house, that will be the 4th place that a lot of you have seen me live in, which is amazing to think about. The first one is a hand at Peppermill from February of 2023. Now, usually the hand pocket 8s is my absolute favorite hand, but perhaps not as much in this particular hand. Let's see what happens when an 8 hits the turn in what would prove to be a very tricky spot.
It comes when we get a limp. I have my favorite hand, pocket 8s in the hijack and make it 50. Cutoff straddle calls, and the limper MP1 completes. So with 155 in, the board comes out King, King, 9, Rainbow. MP1 checks and it's on me. In a pure mathematical sense, 8s are going to be good here a decent amount of the time. The percentage of the time that one of these two guys has trips is going to be fairly small, and the percentage that both of these guys have trips is going to be even smaller. Spoiler alert, this is one of those. I figured a small bet was in order, so I just put in over half the pot, making it 85. Cutoff calls, and MP1 calls too. You're going to have to take my word for this next part. And what I mean by that is I told myself the only way I was going to put another dime into this pot was if an 8 came. And with 410 in, one did. MP1 now decides to lead out for 200. After some debate, figured I could potentially min-raise this hand and get action from both of these guys. So that's what I decided to do. I made it 400. The cutoff, who is an unknown but clearly a good player, barely thinks about it for more than 10 seconds and jams all in.
All in bet.
He has me covered, so it's 1,100 more for me to call. But before we even get to me, MP1, the short stack, decides to put all of his remaining chips in as well. So his last 400 plus go in, and it's back on me. There's 3,000 in this pot, and it's going to cost me $1,100 to try and win it. The question is, would he take this line with ace-king? He didn't 3-bet pre-flop, and he didn't raise the flop with 3 of us in there. So that felt unlikely. King 9, pocket 9s, and King 8, especially that last one being in the straddle, kind of felt the most likely. It should also be pointed out that he didn't really seem all that worried about how much I had left. He just shoved it in. So I was torn. It would obviously be a disaster to fold the best hand here. But if I don't have the best hand, I'm basically dead. And it certainly felt like I was beat. So I gave it some serious thought. I probably spent 2 or 3 minutes thinking about this, with my final 1100 up for grabs. And after that, I decided to make what was going to either be a really good or a really bad fold. MP1 shows King 7, so I had him beat the short stack. And the cutoff does show King 8. He'd already been having one of those dream days, and it only got better with one of the most brutal turn cards in the history of this vlog.
I can still think back to when that vlog was released and actually remembering a lot of very nice things that people said in the comments, which, if you do this, you know how oftentimes that's not what people say. So it was nice to hear that. Able to make a very tough but very good fold in that particular spot with that full house. Let's go to the second hand. This came in May of 2022, the only time I've ever done a vlog on a live stream. The folks at 52 Social, which I don't believe still exists in Round Rock, Texas, flew me out and let me play on this live stream. And to their credit, they got me in the game that I was extremely comfortable in. I felt like I was certainly the favorite in this game. And at the end of the day, I would go on to win more money than anyone else in this particular session for whatever that's worth. And a large part of it came as a result of a hand where I had to put the pieces of the puzzle together and figure out if I should make what you might consider a relatively tough call.
For the next hand, where Joey the Mush opens under the gun 2 with ace 3 of hearts, and then I pick up pocket jacks on his immediate left and 3-bet it to $60. King Kaya is going to come along here in the cutoff. You know he likes to play a lot of hands, and 10-9 offsuit is no exception. So we end up 3 ways to a flop. Comes out 7-8 deuce rainbow. Pretty good flop for pocket jacks here. Obviously, I'm going to bet. Joey the Mush checks, and I make it 90, trying to get action from any hands I could call that would contain an 8. This open-ended straight draw, King Kaya is obviously coming along here, and Joey the Mush gets out of the way, and the turn is the King of Hearts. Didn't feel like it was that bad of a card for me, so obviously I decide to continue to bet. I make it 140 with pretty much the same thought in mind, thinking that a hand like ace 8 was a hand he could have. Also several draws that are out there, and now I had to hope he does not have ace 8 when the river comes the 8 of diamonds. Either way, this feels like a clear-cut check and an opportunity to determine what he would do after that, and he does not waste more than 2 seconds before firing in one $500 purple chip to go along with 4 reds. So a $520 river bet, and it's more than half the pot.
This is effectively putting Ben all in.
And it was putting me in, obviously, a very difficult situation here with the pocket jacks. It certainly looks like he could have an 8, but my thought was at the time, I didn't think he would bet that much if he rivered trips, because it didn't look like I could even beat the king. So would he want to risk not getting paid off in that spot? I did not know the player going into this session, but I was able to pick up on the fact that he was playing quite a few hands throughout the first hour of this cash game. And if there was ever a spot to bluff, it would be in a heads-up pot against me when I check in a spot like this to him on the river. So I took my time with it, and as I said, 10-9 felt pretty likely.
I want to say you have 9-10 of hearts
If
here.
he took a shower, I don't care.
Wow, he's dead on. He's dead on right now.
I didn't think it would be 10-9 offsuit, but 10-9 felt like a pretty likely hand. So I took longer than I really ultimately wanted to take, but finally realized this is the call I had to make.
He's going for it.
Nice call, nice call.
Now, that was not a player that I was familiar with before the day started, but, it doesn't take a lot sometimes when you're playing in games that you don't normally play in to suss out who the guy is that's going to be given the most action and who the guys are that are going to be doing the most bluffing. And certainly that was the case here. So it allowed me to figure that one out and was able to make the correct call in that particular spot. Bonus hand would come right afterwards. And people have actually asked me this before. They've actually asked me, like, which hand that I've vlogged is my favorite hand. I almost want to say this next hand you're going to see. And you're going to be stunned that I would say that. But it's been like a bedrock policy of mine. And, certainly there are times where I'm not going to be able to do this because I know some of you watch the vlog and will think that I'm going to react in a certain way. So I have to do the opposite. But in a general sense, one of the very reliable things that I've been able to operate as a result of over the years is when I play a hand like ace king or ace queen, miss the flop, end up betting the turn, sometimes after a flop C bet, sometimes not. But whenever that card comes in on the turn that gives me top pair, when I bet that card and still get raised, it's one of the most likely things ever that you're going to be up against a very big hand. Now, how often do you actually get to put this to the test? And really, how often do you get to show it off on a live stream that you know exactly what's going on? Here's one time.
This next hand, Zenith's going to come in with the ace-4 off. Joey the Mush with king-8 of clubs +3. I'm going to pick up the ace-queen in the hijack, and it says raised to 39. I'm assuming I raised to 40 in a game where it has to be multiples of 5. 10-5-4 on the flop, so nothing for me but top pair for King Kaya. I decided to fire a continuation bet here, realizing how these guys have been playing. Not my best decision. Obviously, Kaya's going to come in with his top pair, top kicker. He doesn't raise me, though, on the flop. Zenith gets out of the way with a pair of 4s. J-Stack with his 6 deuce off decides to continue on, and there is an ace of clubs on the turn. J-Stack's going to check, and I'm obviously going to bet this ace. I make it $80 trying to continue to get action from a hand like King 10, and King Kaya raises to 225, and this to me was the highlight of my day as I instantly get away from the ace-queen.
And Ben just lets it go. I think most players would call that. That was a nice call.
To hear the commentators say, oh, a lot of guys are putting the call there, but Ben just lays it down. I'll never forget that hand because there had been so many instances where I've had to make that fold before in the exact same spot. Obviously, times I didn't make the fold as well. But in that particular instance, this guy had just bluffed. I had hit the card that he probably was putting me on. He's still raising me. There's no way that a pair of aces there is going to be any good. And sure enough, it wasn't. So that very simple hand will always be one of my all-time favorites that I ever vlogged. And let's go to the most recent edition of hands that is going to make this list, and one that you guys certainly will remember because, as I stated at the time, I do think it was the single best play that I've ever made in a poker game. Now, it was from August of 2025, one of the most miserable months I've ever had as a poker player, but I didn't want to let it get more miserable than it already was. And we had 2 young, very talented professional poker players come in from, I believe, the Bay Area. I'll just shout them out right now. Zach and Ned. And I like both these guys. They're both very nice guys, very good poker players. I don't want them anywhere near the game I'm playing in, but here they are. And vlog legend John the Concert Merch King Gilbert was also in this hand, and if it wasn't for him, I might have lost a lot more money than I actually ended up losing. But let's take a look at a hand that I flopped a set on in 2025. I don't know if he knows who I am, but it's one of those situations where you just have to treat him like an unknown and assume he's going to do the same for me. He opens this hand under the gun to 30. John, the Concert Merch King, calls in the +1 position. By the way, John had told me that he was leaving the day before and someone tried to egg him on to stay in the game. So he rebought for 600 and he ran that all the way up to 6,000. I want to state for the record that I have never tried to talk a player out of leaving to stay in the game. But I love that when these guys did it, John absolutely crushed them. That is fantastic. Anyway, I guess that is something you could factor into this next hand, knowing that he had been kind of on a heater the day before. But I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to consider that factor in what happens here. 2 other guys come in as well, and I have pocket 4s in the cutoff and make the call. So with 165 in, the flop is Jack 3-4 with 2 spades, giving me middle set. The original raiser, the pro under the gun, checks. John, in the +1 position, bets out for 75. And it folds to me. I raise this immediately, making it 175. And it's back to the initial raiser. He grabs 5 black chips and tosses them into the pot for the check raise 3-bet to 500. As I am thinking about what the hell I'm going to do here, John grabs his entire stack, which ended up being $1,210, and slides that into the pot
for the extremely rare post-flop 4-bet all-in. So it's now back on me. If you were going to go by the policy that the legendary J.K. Simmons suggested in one of my all-time favorite comedies, Palm Springs, you should always trust that first instinct.
Should always go with that first instinct, shitbird.
And my first instinct was that I was up against it here. I just think I'm beat. I don't necessarily know by which of these two guys. I just think I'm beat by one of them. Now, I have absolutely no problem doubling up John for 1,200 here, obviously. But against the other player, I'm playing 3,000 effective. So while I might not have a problem doubling up John, I do have a problem doubling up this pro from out of town who has just sat down on the first hand I've ever played against him. That I do have a problem with. And the longer I play poker, the more rare it is that I see random professionals show up in really big pots without the nuts, especially early on in sessions where they don't know anyone. It's also pretty clear to me that if I happen to not be up against pocket jacks, that I'm going to have to dodge a boatload of outs to win this pot. So while we know both of them don't have me beat right now, I feel one of them does, and the other's got a lot of outs too. So I elect to take the road less traveled and fold this hand right now. The pro ends up snap calling, creating a $2,760 pot. John ends up having ace-8 of spades for the nut flush draw, kind of as I suspected. And sure enough, random out-of-town pro rolls over pocket jacks. And the board actually would pair threes on the turn. So I am really glad that I got out of there on the flop because it would have been obviously a much tougher fold on the turn. And I would, by the razor's edge, find a way to prevent myself from losing $3,000.
There were probably a few comments, if I remember correctly, that were indicative of you have to go broke there. Only a bad player folds that hand there, things like that. And, well, allow me to beg to differ, because I do think it was one instance where I managed to absolutely suss the situation out as perfectly as I possibly could and was able to save my stack and book a win as a result of it. And certainly probably one of the most commented on hands, both on the actual log and just in person, that I've ever played. People coming up to me talking about that fold. So unfortunately for this list that I've just provided you with of the most memorable hands, not the most memorable hands of my life, perhaps, but the most memorable hands that I've been able to show you on this vlog, those are the four that immediately came to mind that I wanted to pass along. I'm sure that there's plenty I'm forgetting, because this is the 341st vlog. I'm sure there's a lot that I'm forgetting. So I actually would be curious to see if anyone else had any more than I missed. But for now, that's what I'm going with for this particular point in vlog history, and the last vlog ever to be shot in this particular room. By far the most common location that you've ever seen on this vlog. I've been criticized for this background and everything being boring and kind of lame. And that's because I never intended to be in this house long. I just never got around to putting my stuff on the walls and things like that, always hoping to get an actual house, a house that's mine and mine only. And I finally have that. So I'm very excited. And that's where we're going this week. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and move in right now. Okay, here we are, the new place. I don't want to give you a look around the entire house till I fix it up, and it's still a mess for most of it, but a couple things I just have to get done sooner rather than later. A lot of these houses that were built around like the year 2000, like this one was, they have these incredibly ridiculous holes in the wall that they think you should be putting TVs in. Obviously, the TVs now don't fit in them. I have to flatten this wall. I'm gonna hire someone to do that. Flatten the wall so I can wall mount it. That's order business number one. I gotta paint this place. That's gotta happen. And this damn sink. Not that you care, but I'm showing you anyway. Why the hell do you build these two-tiered sinks anymore? In the dishwasher era, why can't you just have one sink? And the dumbest part about it all, the garbage disposal is on this little part, not the big part. Stupidest thing ever. Gotta fix the sink, gotta fix the wall, gotta paint. You didn't ask, but I'm telling you anyway. All right, and check this out. Just to wrap this up, any of you that are slot players or just gaming historians, perhaps. My dad worked his career in the casino industry, and he gave me these for the new place. He worked at Fitzgerald's Reno, if any of you remember that place, for many years. That's where this big one was from. And this other one originally was from the Nevada Club, which existed up until I can basically start remembering things. Like, I think up until the very early 90s, it was around on Virginia Street in downtown Reno. So obviously this one's much older than this one, but they do both still work if I were to go through the process of making them work. So who would have thought that I'd have that as a possible backdrop for this vlog? It won't be the main backdrop that I use, but I wanted to slide it in there as I get this place settled. My apologies for not being able to put any vlogs out recently. I'm hoping that will change very soon. If you could do me a favor, still hit those like and subscribe buttons. You can also follow along on Instagram at bendeach, and I'll see you back here next time.